The music's been hit. All right, ladies and gentlemen,
Fuck
welcome.
you, guy that cried in court yesterday.
I didn't take long.
All right, we're going to turn the music down for a moment. Oh, my
And
goodness.
we're off.
And we're off. We're going to try that music again.
This is Jake the Machine Davis.
The Highwayman.
And I'm joined by Tate Griffen. And the Highwayman, Leslie Leatherman.
Ow! And about 6-week baby Jesuses. Let's see what happens.
All right. As the first time introduced by Jake the Machine Davis, took me off a step there.
Yeah,
I'm not exactly sure where to go from here.
I thought he did a pretty good job there.
Yeah, it was really good. But now I'm kind of like...
Well, the truth is that you taught me which buttons to push. You can go. I no longer need you here. And you take Reggie Collins with you.
Reggie Collins is also here at the shop today.
Yes.
Once you passed on the number to rent the ring truck, we don't even need you at the show anymore.
You know what? That'd actually be okay. Oh, all right.
Anyway.
I'll do the Tim special.
Yeah, Reggie Collins sitting in for the first time at the Elite Pro Podcast. We were going to make you sit there and do nothing, but
I think this is actually the second time that Reggie Collins has sat
Yeah,
in.
were you laying here during the Robbie Page one?
Yeah,
In the
you-
first
I wasn't
one.
here during the first
No,
one.
what point
You fell asleep on the floor, didn't you? Was that a coincidence? Or?
I fell asleep with a bag of candy.
All right.
Don't
That's
feel
funny.
bad.
I just-
Leatherman
I
said that
just-
he fell asleep in the chair, too.
That's it. I didn't. My ass fell asleep. Had a huge pain in it.
All right. Well, we're...
That was the day that my basement flooded. Or you got water in it. It was the second worst thing that happened that evening.
All right. We're 24 hours removed, right down to the minute from the moment that the doors open tomorrow night in Mount Storm at the Union Athletics Complex. The Elite Pro Wrestling Alliance live in Mount Storm. We have a huge, huge show. At the top of that card, again, it's another show, and I don't want to sound repetitive, but we have so many shows where there's 4 or 5 matches that could be the main event on the card, and this is no different. You have the Patriot wrestling against the Ace of Spades, the self-proclaimed Ace of Spades, Eddie Page. You have High Tide Bodie Williams defending the Elite Pro Wrestling Alliance Heavyweight Championship against Brandon Scott in a
Mr.
rematch.
Excellence.
Yep, in a rematch that their first match was epic, and it was in Mount Storm.
Mm-hmm.
I think the booking committee looked at that and said, you know what, what's going to get people to drive up that mountain? And I think that match will do it. We also have the tag match with yourself, teaming up with Flex Phenom.
Highwayman Leslie Leatherman and Flex Phenom versus Unstoppable Jason Raditz and the Wild Man Robbie Page.
Is he really sticking with that moniker? Because while he may be unstoppable at times, I think it's kind of lame. Who come up with that
I
shit?
think that was, hey, wait. Pardon me, I have something in my eye.
I'll be over here.
But, well, either way, whether he sticks with the Unstoppable or not, Jason Raditz is a badass. So I don't know if we can just start calling him Badass Raditz.
You really should get in the gym and work a little bit harder.
Yeah,
Put a little size on
you know.
before he's stepping in there with 2
He
veterans.
and Bodie are
such as yourself.
embarrassments, but
Well, see, I remember the first couple times he came in, and I think it was you that went, where's Rat Ass? Where's Rat Ass at?
I have a tendency of making nicknames up for people, especially when I don't want to remember their real name for a while.
yeah, like that guy at court that cried yesterday, I was calling him fucking Baby Crier Guy. That was her name. Now, for the record, my job, I have to go to court every now and again for my job. I wasn't in court for something that I did, but Baby Crier Guy was fucking there. So if you see a guy walking around the streets in Allegheny County crying, might be him.
I thought you listened to Coffee and Cigarettes from Josh Morningstar for a living, because that's usually
Not on
what I hear
Wednesdays, they
about.
make me go to court every other Wednesday, which is bullshit. But, whatever.
Okay, so we have those.
Whatever.
We have those matches. We
Quick
have
little outburst there, buddy.
Tess Valentine and facing
Danny DeVille.
Danny DeVille,
In a very heated rivalry, as we've
Yes.
touched on before.
which I think also would most likely decide the number 1 contender for that title.
I think that
Well, and I'd be curious to see how that would unfold, because if and when Danny would get the victory over Tess, I mean, the new alliance with her and Casey Carlisle that we saw there a couple months back, or last month, I don't know if Danny would go after Casey, or if that would even be a conversation, at least for a while. You know what I mean?
Right.
So,
Well, I mean, there's 2 ways to look at it. With as new as Danny DeVille is, sitting under Casey Carlisle's learning tree would be an invaluable experience for her. So I could see where maybe she wouldn't want to cross her just yet because it's such an opportunity to learn from her, but at the same time, if you're not in it to be the champion, why are you there?
Yeah.
So, it's
It's all about picking your moments. Timing.
BB Gun Mania knows no loyalty. So that's
That a Christmas story reference?
Christmas story
That's nice.
I do believe TJ Sykes is on the card.
Is he?
Yes.
Great.
What poor? Oh, he's working Anthony Adam.
Yes. Did you say what poor bastard?
What poor bastard is he working? Anthony Adam. I don't know why we just don't have Sykes and Dalton Hayes work each other every show. Let the fans know which match they can just take off to go fill the meter or change a diaper. Whatever.
Go take an RL. Whatever you need to do.
I kid, of course. I'm a big fan of TJ Sykes. I think he's amazing. I loved Billie Jean, and I think he's amazing.
Yeah, we have speaking of Dalton Hayes, he's teaming up with Shane Malice to form a new tag team called the Exiled, and yes, the Exiled, and they'll be facing the Goodfellas.
Yeah, which is Goodfellas are a great tag team. Shorty Smalls put something on social media this week, and I don't really get on social media crazy a lot, except to post the newest picture of my dog. But he puts somebody, one of the gentlemen that does the fans of Elite Pro, Than.
Yes, Ton. Yes,
He put this picture of Jake and myself and Raditz and Eddie Page and Vince Vega.
And it's a couple years old, isn't it?
Yeah, it was
a heels picture.
What is it? I pop for the heels or something?
Yes, it was
a shirt, a t-shirt design.
Yeah, that was back when I was on top. People wanted to make us center.
So somehow somebody said, "Where's Shorty Smalls?" And next thing you know, Shorty Smalls is like, "You need to get rid of Jake and Leslie because they're not heels and they've never beat the Goodfellas." And I had to remind him that I'm pretty sure that we did. And I think I'm pretty sure he tapped out in the War Games match in which we were on the other side of that War Games match. So, and I noticed that there was no response after that. The typing got awful quiet on that end. So I'm not sure, but.
R.L. Smith will be defending the Elite Pro Cruiserweight Championship against Chris Gatton, and that guy
apparently had the greatest match in the history of CPW last week.
Hey, you know what? It was great. I'm sorry, and I'm looking forward to that. I think he might surprise you. I think that he could very well become the next champion. We also have
I like Gatton as a kid too. Like he's shows up, he works hard. You don't have to ask anything of him because he's already offering it. Before and after the show. I mean, there's a lot to be said. You can definitely tell the difference between the young guys that show up and do what's not expected of them, than having to follow people around, tell them what they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
And whether it's our shows, whether it's every show I've ever gone to some extent, whether we have any hand in the pot or not, whether we're just talent on the show or what. I mean, that's a frustrating scenario for anybody that's out there running a show. I mean, if you ask, even just in this area, you could ask anybody, from Shane Shadows to John Rambo to Tyler Steele to anybody that runs has ever run a show. When you got younger guys or guys, mid-card guys, or anybody that's somehow related to it and is expected to jump in there, if they don't, it's pretty irritating. But when you got a guy like Gatton on there that jumps in there, and I'm not saying that so if he hears this, he feels obligated, but it's RL's like that too. It's good to have those guys around.
real team players.
Yeah.
And it's nice when a person is also self-motivated. You don't have to micromanage them. And something needs done. They recognize that something needs done, and then they do it. And
sure.
That's in life in general, that's a good rule of thumb.
Well, when like you said, whether it's Shadows or Rambo or whoever, and just like us, it's like you can appreciate the fact that there's a lot on your plate the day of a show, and so somebody taking something off of it without even asking is always appreciated.
Yeah.
Yeah. We also have a big battle royal, which I'm a fan of the battle royals, especially the ones like this where you have a couple guys coming from the outside, and then you also have the youngest talent on maybe guys that aren't even yet on the roster, guys that are still training. But it's that opportunity to kind of stand out from that crowd and possibly earn yourself a spot.
And anything can happen in a battle royal. I mean, It doesn't matter. I mean, you've seen it, whether it's on TV, whether it's a local show, whatever. Anything can happen in a battle royal. You see guys tangle up that never get hands on each other, or it may be years down the road before one is ready, or who knows? But I always enjoy watching the Battle Royals.
And Reggie Collins, you will be a part of that Battle Royal. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is correct.
That's correct.
Gives him the point.
All right.
Go ahead. You may speak, youngster.
I appreciate you holding back the enthusiasm.
All right, Reggie Collins, let's put you on the spot now. When you're looking at guys like Tarvin and some of the, and I believe Corey Bush may be a part of this, and you got some guys that are pretty big. Body weight wise, you're not exactly at the upper end of that scale. What is your mentality going into this? How many Battle Royals do you think you've been in to this point?
I think I've been in 3, I think.
And how have you fared?
I've lost all of them.
Well, it's not exactly. There's winners in Battle Royals, but there's not really losers. Unless you're the first guy eliminated, then you should feel like a loser.
Like all the ones I was eliminated in, there were no losers. The ones that I won, everybody else lost.
Depends on what seat you're sitting in.
Yeah, but we have. I'm trying to think of who else in that. Like you said, Corey Bush, a classic example of a guy from the outside who's been working for over a decade.
Yeah,
and is coming in for an opportunity. And
I'll tell you what, Corey cuts some really great promos sometimes. Have you ever seen any of the videos that he does? I mean, he is really, he's a pretty good talker, and I'm a big fan of the talkers, the people that can talk a good game and everything.
Sure.
And then, he does, for somebody that's his size, and I mean, his moniker is the weight of the world, so it's not, I'm not speaking out of turn or anything like that. I'm not exactly, slim, good body myself. So, but, if you do watch some of the matches that he's had, and we pick on T.J. Sykes, but, there's a match on YouTube of Corey Bush and T.J. Sykes that's an excellent match. And so, I mean, he's definitely a guy that I look at and think, man, he's got a lot going for him.
Yeah.
You can't the book from its cover thing,
Sure.
I mean, he's got some talent, and this is certainly the type of match that's going to be in his wheelhouse.
Yeah.
A Battle Royal.
He doesn't abuse catering near as much as I thought he would. So that's a plus. Corey, I know let Corey go without something, and I know he's going to listen to this. But no, in all seriousness, my favorite thing that I ever saw Corey Bush do was 2 shows in a row. He gave the big splash to a rather unwilling Nightfire Billy Franco. And it was great. I taped him in slow motion.
What the fuck did we say about saying his name? Man, we talked about this.
Even if you want to mention Franco, don't start monitoring him with the Nightfire.
Nightfire Billy Franco.
Fucking maximum authority is the next word off your tongue. You're fucking out of here.
I'm just outside. What are you doing? Waiting outside my own store till the podcast is over.
It's like your store, your computer, and your podcast.
Shane Malice and Dalton Hayes are about to be scuttled off to the side because you're going to be exiled here in a second.
Manager of the exiled. Hailing from the parking lot of Blankenships.
Anyway.
Fuck. Anyway.
Oh.
So it's going to be a good show. So how can people get tickets to this thing?
That's in my wheelhouse.
Yes.
How do we get tickets? You can come to Calling All Heroes Comics. We're at 50 Stately Street in Wiley Ford, West Virginia, right behind Blankenships. Or you can call us, 301-697-1909, and reserve tickets by phone and pay for them when you get to the event. You can also go to facebook.com/EliteProUniverse and send us a message how many tickets you need. They've been going pretty quickly, and I think it's going to be an awesome show.
My understanding real quick, though, is that we were now accepting credit card payments, too.
Yes, we are.
So that's
Both
good.
Here at Calling All Heroes and at the door.
We are. I will tell you, you're saving money, though, if you call ahead or you come into the shop. When you get up on the mountain, the signal's not always great, so while I'd love to say, yeah, we're definitely taking credit cards, when you come up on that mountain, if there's not a signal, then sometimes that's a little harder. Might take a few extra minutes. Plus, you're saving a couple bucks on every single ticket. So a family of 5 coming in saves $10. You go to the concession stand or whatever, pick up a shirt or something. I mean, it's definitely worth it to get it in early. So, and then all week long, Go Into 6 has been advertising the show. They give away 2 tickets a day. Tomorrow's the last day. So, you know what usually happens, and I think because they do that a lot, I think there are people that are trying to win those tickets because on Friday afternoon, it's almost like after that last opportunity around 12 at the lunch break with Rhonda.
Yeah, maybe people are hanging out because they know that they're going to be able to get them right up until
once their last opportunity to win them for nothing,
Yeah.
kind of goes. We get a lot of calls.
Always get a little bit of a
Yeah, and I think it's a cool environment up there. I like the stage. I like the curtains. I think all that's good.
The staff up at the Union Educational Complex is always real easy to work with, real outgoing for us and everything. And obviously they're running the concessions as a fundraiser, so it's always nice to help them out too. So it's always a nice reciprocating.
It's helping the boys basketball program up there. So yeah, absolutely. Come up and check it out. Especially when it's hot outside, it's about 15 degrees colder up there. So it's nice and very pleasant. Sometimes we hit those shows, in Frankfurt in June or July, and it's pretty hot. So it's a really, really comfortable spot.
I hear through the grapevine that Man-Thing hated those fucking shows. Somebody told me that when it was hot, that fat masked bastard did not like it a bit. That's what I hear. I don't know. I can't speak
It was
for
a
it.
grapevine.
I can't speak for it. Wink, wink. Apparently, he got stuck in one in July in Michigan. It was outside. It was a four-day run. They were all four outside in Michigan in the middle of fucking summer in July. We almost lost Man-Thing. it was pretty fucking bad.
He was in his early 40s.
The crazy thing is, Man-Thing did those 4 shows. I ended up getting blood clots a week later.
The irony in it all.
It's strange.
And not to jump
Fuck you, Michigan. Shitty state.
And
Sorry, Rhino.
and not to jump the gun on this, but August 25th, we're in Kaiser, West Virginia, at the Kaiser High School for a huge show, and we have Ultimo Dragon, arguably one of the greatest performers in the history of the sport, most decorated wrestler ever. And he's coming in, actually flying in from Mexico City to come do the show. And then we also have TNA current X Division champion Sanjay Dutt also booked on the show.
Yeah.
So some really, really big, cool happening things. And that show, I think, is going to have a whole lot of attention. And the things that happen at this show inevitably are going to affect what that card is.
Yeah, much like
getting up the road.
The 9th-year anniversary show
Yeah.
carried over, or 8-year anniversary
It's
show.
like the
carried
road
over,
to that event.
Yeah.
So, yeah, good stuff.
I heard Leatherman rat it swore down at the anniversary show.
That
Well,
was
if you
good.
can bring a fucking Night Flyer Billy Franco, I'm bringing that up every fucking show. Every podcast, I'm bringing that shit up.
Tell you what, with all the damage that match did to the venue and the property of the school, it's amazing we didn't get thrown out of the venue, but we didn't.
Yeah,
and they
well,
loved it. So.
What are you going to do? Not use me anymore?
You've been trying to get out for years.
Celebrating
so-
2 decades of possibly not being used
Yeah.
anymore.
I paid twice as much for the toys as I got paid for the match. So.
He's been
That, my friend, is a shoot.
He's been trying to retire for 12 years.
I'm trying to. Speaking of, my buddy Josh, Josh Morningstar, got married this weekend. It was awesome. We were at the wedding, ran into OGB, which was great. Did you guys see today that he posted a video of the commercial for the 30 for 30 of Ric Flair?
I did.
That's
I saw.
coming out. Did you happen
It's going to be
see
awesome.
that?
I didn't get to see it. But.
Yeah, it's pretty. It's a great. You say you saw
I didn't see I saw he posted
the
it.
trailer. Oh,
Yeah.
it's amazing. So
Cool.
It looks great. So
Yeah, it was a great time. It was a great weekend, actually.
oh, it was fantastic. Yeah, it was. It's always good seeing OGB. Always good seeing Josh. But
I was kind of. We were kind of hoping that we'd see OGB, and then he showed up there, right after the ceremony and stuff. And another, obviously another big congratulations to Josh Morningstar on his marriage and
his
everything.
beautiful wife Tess, and it was an awesome.
It was fantastic
ceremony.
Kate Jennings did the ceremony. Waylon's daughter-in-law.
Wow.
Waylon's son was there.
son Buddy was there.
We got to talk to them, especially Kate, for a long
time, and she
period,
told us
probably
some
about an hour and a half,
great.
and
Waylon
So it was
Jennings
pretty awesome
stories.
for those of us that are really into Waylon and old school outlaw country and stuff like that. It was kind of surreal.
Which is where
just to kind of hang out because she couldn't have been cooler. And
Which is
Sweet.
where I came up with the name for the Highwaymen from
were we loud?
Waylon and William.
That's why you're the highwayman and the
Well,
rest are other highwaymen.
but truthfully, I did get to tell, which is neat. She did tell some amazing Waylon stories, which was cool. And I mean, I kind of prompted her, but it was sort of like once I got one out of her, she just started dropping a couple.
She was
of
a roving book, and she was so cool. Like
So cool.
You know, it's amazing how the music industry and the wrestling industry kind of overlap when it comes to mentalities of people and stuff. So
Yeah.
especially
she was
I
more
feel like
like
country music.
She
for some
reminded me
reason.
more of someone like a Tommy Dreamer or a Shane Douglas or a Terry Funk. They'll be happy to, like, if you ask them about a story or a certain person, it opens a floodgate of stories, and they'll just talk your ear off until you have to walk away. And she was like that, because as soon as, like, it's not, you know, a lot of the word mark's thrown around in wrestling all the time, and I'm sure in music it's similar when fans come up and just start bugging somebody that is on the inside, and she's been on the inside her whole life, and but she wasn't like, she was so opposite of that. She was just so cool and so approachable, and like you said, as soon as she said it in passing and everything, of course the name struck a chord, and then we asked her about it, and then once we established talking and meeting and all that, then it was just like we just got to listen, and we got to ask any questions about anything we wanted to, and she's just super cool.
She was, and it was really neat. I mean, Josh.
And we had Morningstar
was,
playing in the background the whole time, so that was kind of cool too.
it was great between, you know, seeing Josh get married, seeing him, you know, with some of the struggles, and I think he was the first guest we ever had, podcast guest, correct? Am I right in that assessment?
Yeah, first or second,
First or
maybe.
second.
It was early on. Maybe Tyler.
Maybe
Steele
probably
was first.
conflict. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but he was, you know, Oh, yeah. Tyler may have been first, but he was. It was great to see him. It was great to hear the music. It was great to meet her. And then we also, you know, Josh has got. There's a big concert coming up on September 30th in Boonesboro, Maryland, right outside of Hagerstown, and Shooter Jennings is going to be Waylon's other son. Is going to be headlining that, but Josh is going to be on there.
Cool.
And it's the day
Along with
after
Calder Wall too. He's an amazing
Calder Wall,
fellow.
and it's the day after Josh's disc drops. His
Oh,
new
nice.
disc drops September 29th, so he'll be there, and it's in the Boonesboro Festival or something. I'm sure if you Google it, you can find it. But getting back to OGB, I asked my good old buddy OGB, I was like, you know, do you ever miss it? Do you ever have the itch? And he said, well, you never lose the itch. And then I think it was approximately an hour after we were leaving the wedding, we left the wedding, that he sent a text to Jake Davis and was like, "Yeah, I'm thinking about it. You know, I wouldn't mind getting back in the
Yeah, he
ring and doing
definitely,
something." And
You know, I'll paraphrase, but he basically said that, you know, that he definitely did have the itch, and that he always saw that if he stepped back into a ring, he would try his hand at coming back to Elite to rekindle and finish whatever he wanted to do in pro wrestling. That was on the top of his list of you know, goals if he were to get back in the ring.
Yeah.
That he definitely wanted to do it in Elite. So
I
Time will
can't,
tell, you know?
Yeah, I can't speak for him. First of all, as a fan, but he's the guy that I've had more matches with than anybody,
Really?
and nobody's ever hit me harder in the ring than him. And probably I don't know if I've ever hit anybody any harder in the ring either. That was just that kind of. I think I'm.
Leatherman hits everybody hard.
Well, but you know what though?
Everybody get together, have your own podcast. Is ever wrestled Leatherman, and you can all trade club stories.
Well, the truth is though, and I think Griffin, you will echo this, and I'm not saying that it isn't true, because it is, but I think that Jake was always looked at as the tough highwayman,
Sure.
and I think that OGB was always looked at, and I think that's where the name came from, as the other Grunger brother. You know, he was, you know, so every time he and I got into the ring together, he wanted to prove that he wasn't just a third wheel riding his brother's coattails. And, you know, and I always had something to prove. Was like, you know, Leslie Leatherman's pretty fucking tough too. You know, and
that OGB, the initials in that almost became funny, because I mean, like he I think he did always have that seed planted that he had to prove himself, but he was such a talent. And he was so far above so many people.
Well, I think that he thought that. I don't think the rest of us didn't feel like he had
the rest of us
anything to
didn't.
prove.
But I think that if he really looked back, and then he even, you know, I mean, as great as those guys were at this point of his stage of his career or his life as a man, I mean, he can look back on his career and he can put that up against most people that step through the ropes on an indie level. And you know, whether it's his brothers or whether it's the Hyman or whether it's anybody, because he's, I mean, you know, he doesn't have to take a back step to anybody.
And then no disrespect to Gutter Boy and Skank, because obviously what I think of those two guys, I mean, total respect. But I think in a lot of ways, I would even say that OGB surpassed those guys in a lot of ways. And I believe that. I know early on when we were down at the House of Pain, at one point OGB got teamed up with Adian. And I think we talked last week about Adian and how much respect we had. Mm-hmm. And Jake and I, for about 3 or 4 weeks in a row, I can't remember exactly how many, but it was us closing out, I don't want to say main eventing, because, I think that's, it's whatever. But we were having great matches with OGB and Adian. What's going on? What am I missing? I'm seeing faces. Do you have a garbage bag? Are you looking for a garbage bag?
Jake got me these drinks, which I do appreciate, but the thing is they have carbs in them, and I can't drink them anymore.
I can do carbs.
Look at the carbs.
Nobody pointed at you, Reggie Collins. Christ, give me the Red's apple pussy drink, whatever it is. Holy shit, Jim.
All right, are we done listening to Brian talk about stuff? All right. Well, let's go ahead and...
Not for another hour.
Very quickly, before he starts talking again.
Wait, I got to do something with this bag. Give me just a second to... Okay.
Let's go ahead.
I'll put it next to the bottles.
Let's go ahead and rewind it 24 hours and talk about my NWL Heavyweight Championship victory.
And what an asshole I feel like for not bringing it up instead, so that you didn't have to.
Oh, that's all right, because I'm pretty proud of it.
No, it's awesome.
It was a little over 16 years since I had held it last, and we've much like Leatherman, we've kind of, and you, Tate, have gone back to the House of Pain or the NWO here and there over the years, but it's been pretty few and far between overall. But we just went back for the Dick Harakoff Classic Tag Team Tournament, and then I got that opportunity to wrestle Lance, and it was twofold, because it was the first time I'd ever got to wrestle Lance, and to go after the NWL title again. I mean, I would say nationally it's probably the longest running heavyweight championship of any independent league, because the NWL started right at the tail end of the territories. And I mean, if you're going to classify leagues, like Memphis and like Mid-Atlantic and all these other organizations that were territory organizations, I mean, the transition from the territories into independent leagues, well, the NWL title was established right around that time. There was that late 80s, so mid to late 80s. So, I mean, it was one of the first, quote, independent heavyweight championships, and so I mean it's one of the longest running. So it's always a thing of pride to be able to say you're that champion.
And you think of all the people that have held it.
Yeah, I was going to say,
it goes all the way
lineage.
through.
I mean, if you got Snuka, you got Foley, you got Ivan Koloff, you got Headshrinker Samu, you got the Patriot, you got John Rambo. I mean, there's all three of us have held it. I mean, that's Griff. You didn't.
No,
did
not.
Sorry about that.
I haven't held a belt there. I haven't held a belt in Elite Pro either.
I think it was.
Well, you were a member of the 6-man tag team champions.
Oh yeah.
It was
good times.
First singles title.
Yeah.
What's that?
It was Foley's first singles title.
He said that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I think that's what's Tim Walker's quote about Dick Harakoff?
I don't remember it exactly, but Tim had said that he paved the way and that he's a true pioneer of the Mid-Atlantic. And I mean, that's 100% true.
And I think too, I mean, really for Jake, to me, this was, we talk about, and I don't want to, it's not WrestleMania, because we're independent wrestlers, and I get that, but this is kind of like Hogan and The Rock. You know what I mean? This is a match that you never thought you were going to see happen.
Right.
On the level that we're on. This is, John Rambo named Jake the best of the 25 years that he has ever trained someone. And I don't think there was a person that saw Jake get that. We all busted his chops about it. But I think every one of us, if we were going to put in a vote, if John would have said, let's vote for it, I know most of us would have voted for Jake. I believe that. Flex obviously would have voted for himself, but
sure.
Whatever. But so you've got Jake Davis against Lance Anawahi, who comes from the greatest family in wrestling history, or arguably in wrestling royalty. To see these two guys from these two different generations clash, And I love the symmetry of, John Rambo was trained at Offa's school, and now here's Offa's grandson representing John's league, and here's John's, in his opinion and in most of ours, his greatest student going against each other. And from what I hear, and unfortunately I had an obligation, I couldn't be at that match, but from what I hear, you guys tore the house down.
Yeah, I was real proud of it. I was real happy with it. And it was. I made a comment on a picture that I saw, but it was the truth. Like, since I had never locked up with him, I thought, within the first couple exchanges, I really was like, man, this is, sometimes you get a guy that you're not familiar with. You wonder how it's going to play out, or if you guys are going to be completely off, or timing wise, whatever it is. And that chemistry was there. And I was, as it went on again, I was like, yeah, he's just that good. I mean, he's, and typically speaking, the Samoans are extremely talented anyway. But it was amazing how well we clashed, and like I just realized how smooth he was, and how obviously coming from the Samoan Training Center, I mean, he's just there's such a training regimen up there anyway. But I mean, having that bloodline, having that talent, and the athleticism, and everything about it, like I went out there with the moniker that I had something to prove, that even from the family and from the training center and the things that he's already accomplished, he's going to have to prove to me he belongs in the ring with me, even though he was the champion. And it took about 2 minutes before I was like, well, shit, I'm going to have to turn the dial up to keep up with this kid. So I did, and then as I did, he did, and then we just kept going. And I mean, they were live rounds. It was like a war zone out there for, it wasn't a particularly long match. It was probably 12
I was going to ask
14 minutes, something like that. And, I'd say it was somewhere between 10 to 15 minutes, somewhere in that range. If I had to try to guess, I haven't seen the footage or anything, or got a time on it. But I mean, it was hot and heavy from the very get go, and it didn't slow down. I mean, it's not one of those chin lock matches or something. Yeah. And surprisingly enough, there wasn't a whole lot of feeling out. We pretty much got in there and just went at it, and it was a hell of a match. And I mean, I was as happy with that match as I've been, especially with somebody I wasn't that familiar with wrestling for a long time. I mean. So I couldn't be happier. And then obviously, leaving with the NWL title, it's kind of surreal. It's like George Strait said, it's amazing how far you go to get back where you started, and that, it was kind of one of those coming home things. So it was pretty awesome.
What, if any, additional pressure is there wrestling Lance and Wahi for the NWL title, being chosen by John as the best of the best, in front of Lance's dad, Samu, who has been so instrumental in all of our lives, and an elite pro. And I mean, do you feel extra pressure knowing that Sam's eyes are on you, and that you're in there in the ring with his son?
Tell you what, it was surprising, because not really. I mean, it was such a cool locker room anyway, because the Phenom was there, Shane Shadows was there in a 6-man tag. Flex teamed with Samu earlier in the night. I mean, there were so many different things that were going on, but with the shows now, I mean, John's out there, since he's not competing on the shows anymore, and he's the promoter. He's out there watching, like you said.
Was that more pressure than Sam? John watching? I mean, it's like,
I mean, I don't know if pressure is the word, but you always, even now, I mean, we've had, I could count on one hand the amount of matches I've actually had at the House Band or the NWL in the last probably 10 years. But you have that. You always want to please them. It's almost like
I know. Yeah.
I don't know. It's kind of weird. Being a mentor, and of course, like you said, Samu was a mentor of ours. We've wrestled him so many times over the years, especially early in our career, that more so than the pressure of wanting to do good, you don't want to disappoint them, so you want to live up to their expectations. Right. And so it was good because I mean, and we talked about it last week, I think, after the podcast about pressure and stuff, and we found ourselves at the top of cards pretty early in our career, and we've pretty much been there all. So I don't think the pressure has ever been a thing, but it's kind of that craving to exceed anybody's expectations that's in the room. It's not really that it's overwhelming pressure, or you don't have any kind of you don't really have the doubt. You more or less just you decide how far you really want to turn it up. I don't know. It's kind of weird because I really I embraced the Bret Hart line from Wrestling with Shadows years ago. That was when we started. I never worried about getting hurt. I just wanted to look good. But once I knew it was going to look good, I just worried about getting hurt. And I don't really honestly worry about it quote looking good, but you always want to figure out what can I do to pop the boys,
Right.
and that's kind of where I'm at in my career. If I go out there and we bust chops with guys all the way up and down the roster, especially the lead, the younger guys and stuff, because there's like a line drawn in the sand from the guys that are the veterans, from the guys like Robbie Page and Brandon Scott that's got about 10 or 12 years in up, to the guys like us that's been around for like 20 years, and then you got the guys that are below that, because there's so many of those guys filtering in now that's had anywhere from 1, 3, 5, 7 years. And I mean, there's definitely a line, because there's a completely different mentality difference. There's a different, approach to how they wrestle and their techniques and all this other stuff. I think that the guys that are, as you've said many times, I think the older guys are old for a reason, and I think the younger guys think their shit don't stink right out of the gate. So sometimes you gotta, wave the stench over at them every once in a while and let them know that it does. You know what I mean?
well, there's two things. One, I love the old Arn Anderson line where, don't tell me in years, but tell me in matches.
Yeah.
And we know if you came from the House of Pain, you trained at the House of Pain, and you wrestled at the House of Pain, you had match experience. Not just year experience, but match experience.
Right.
So anybody that didn't come from that environment, they might have 5 years, but they might have 20 matches or 30 matches a year. We had counting the battle royals and everything like that, we had 15, 20 matches a month. And that's not a crazy exaggeration when you think about Tuesdays, Saturdays, NWL road shows.
Fridays.
So
and
all of that
and a match
stuff.
and a battle royal on each.
Right. So,
sometimes work a double duty just because the card needed filled.
Or if one of you, if you put on a mask, you might wrestle twice. Who knows? So there was stuff like that going on.
Opportunities were there. Yeah.
But when you talked about John and wanting to impress John, I remember when the three of us went down. What was the anniversary show? Do you remember what the earmark anniversary was? What the
17 years?
17-year anniversary
I think it was
show.
17 years.
We went down and we had a 6-man tag.
Yes,
three of us
17.
against T.J. Sykes, Brandon Scott, and Robbie Page. Yeah. Flex came out with us, and John and Sam came out with them, and they're right there at the ringside.
Yeah.
And for those who have not been to the House of Pain, I'll explain to you. For those who have, it's an awesome building, a historic building, but it's a smaller building.
It's a very intimate setting.
So John and Sam are basically pinched up against the ring. I mean, they're leaning on the ring, and Flex is in our corner, out in the front and everything like that. And I remember I had only had one match in 3 years, and that was a War Games match at that particular point.
Which is a far cry from seeing what kind of ring shape it is.
Yes.
You're looking at an 8-man or 10-man. I can't remember that one if there was 5 on each team or 4, but it was basically a glorified, brutal war game battle royal for the most part, because everybody's in there just beating the shit out of it.
So I was just kind of like, and then to make matters, we did, I think Griffin started out with TJ.
Yeah.
Transitioned to a tag with Jake and Robbie, then I got to go in there with Brandon Scott, which is fun. But I remember just thinking the same thing, like, of all the people that were watching, my brother was there, my nephew was there, and everything like that. And I don't care what anybody says; they can say, "Oh, Leatherman's an ass kiss" or what. I wanted to make John proud. I wanted to go out there, and I wanted to. On that anniversary show, it was 5 of his graduates, because I think TJ graduated somewhere else, and he had us in that match.
Explains a lot too.
Yes, and he had that, and Sam was out there, and I wanted John to be like, I booked the right match here, and bringing the Highwaymen back, with Flex Phenom, and because Flex it was perfect that Flex was there.
Yeah.
And when that match was over, we went right into the intermission and kind of presented John with some stuff. And I remember John saying something, and John didn't throw out a lot of compliments, but he talked about how proud he was of what he just saw in that ring, and he was speaking from emotion, but it was pretty good. It was pretty awesome, and that might be my favorite House of Pain moment.
Really?
Of all the things I've done and all the laughs and stuff like that I had, I would say that was probably one of my favorite. I'd at least put it in the top 5.
Oh, for sure.
I'll tell you what, too, and not to jump topic too much, but, John not giving too many compliments, he never did. And, like, even from way back when, 20 years ago, if he didn't throw around a lot of compliments, which is what makes them better when you get
Right.
because you know that it's sincere, you know that it's legit. If he sat around, and a lot of people do that in a lot of different locker rooms you go into, and everybody's yes men for each other, and people are like, "Oh, that was great. Oh, that was perfect. Oh, that was match of the night. Oh, that was this and that." I mean, it kind of becomes cliche. It's like
it's lip service. It's not.
Yeah, nobody's getting better by that.
Yeah.
But if you know that if John comes to you and says "great job," it's because he honestly believes you did a great job, and you must have for it to be on his radar, because otherwise you could get negative service from him or not get anything from him. But if you're getting a compliment, it's because you were on point. And that was pretty awesome.
I would say that, and I'd put the other one I'd put up there was it was a July 4th show. I can't remember which one exactly, but we were getting our certification, and Griff, you had to take some time off for.
I think it was 2000. Might have been
2000. You had to take some time off
for the birth of Reggie Collins.
All right, well, you stooge that off.
Give Man Thing my regards, okay?
There was a moment that, and it goes back to, it lends itself back to guys that don't throw compliments and stuff around. I remember when John presented us with our completion of training certificates, and I believe, and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that Jake and I earned our completion of training certificates faster than any student John has ever had. Mm-hmm. And John would, if I'm wrong, please correct me, and I'll say I'm sorry. But, I probably won't mean it. but when that was over and John presented us with that, it was the last moment of the show. It was the very end of the show, and Skank and Gutter Boy. John's 4th of July shows were always packed. It was huge because there was fireworks at the ball field, which was pretty close that you could see. And John always did a cookout, always treat the fans to something special, and it was always a loaded card. And, and that little building was always packed in that generation of the House of Pain. It was always packed. And the 4th of July shows just seemed to be one of the ones that probably, I'd say it was maybe the biggest drawing show of the year. Would you say?
At the House of Pain.
At the House of Pain. And I'll never forget when John handed us our certificates, and we were both just kind of, as cool as that was, as awesome as getting that piece of paper was, and John endorsing us, when Gutter Boy and Skank came kind of pushing through the crowd and grabbed us and hugged us.
That never happened.
That never happened. And that, I can't even tell, I'm getting like the gooses here, the goosebumps, but that was probably, I don't know, that endorsement from John, but that hug from those two guys.
It was cool because, I mean, that ultimately is what stemmed us to go down there. I mean, we've said it before on here, but Tate was the one that backed us into the corner and set it up for us to go down and officially sign up to House of Pain, where we'd be sitting here talking about what is. But, the thing that made us actually want to wrestle was the night at Pod State when John wrestled Bob Starr in a steel cage, and Donnie and Scott, or
the Grunchers.
Skank and Gutter Boy wrestled Shane Shadows and Switchblade in the tag team steel cage. I mean, it really was. So to have John be the one to award us that, and then have the Grungers as the guys that came out that we wanted to be in that tag team steel cage match, and for them to come out and show us that sign of respect, like, you guys made it, and it's kind of like, wow. It
was that, those two moments, that anniversary show, and that, I mean, titles come and go. And I'm not knocking. I mean, I love winning belts, and I love winning awards.
You are a belt
and
winner, that's for sure.
No, but those are moments that I'm like, man, that was. It's kind of like Flair
we
says,
negotiate a big ass multi-show deal just when the belt finally come off of you.
Well, yeah, just I wanted to be the champion so bad. But you know what I mean, though. I mean, we kid, but it was something. It was pretty. It was pretty freaking amazing. That to me was pretty special. It was cool. So that will, for those of you who heard me get excited a little bit earlier about OGB saying that he's got the itch. I mean, anytime you get a grunger in the ring, you are going to. I always say there are people that I will buy a ticket to watch wrestle. I'll always buy a ticket to watch Jake Davis wrestle. Shorty Smalls, I'm such a huge mark of Shorty too. Smalls. I just think I just think he's amazing. Wouldn't fucking pay a dime to see TJ Sykes wrestle. but the Grungers, I don't care if it's OGB, if it's Skank or Gutter Boy, man, I would buy a ticket to see those guys.
So with OGB, and you look at the current landscape, If you're the guy booking the show, who do you want to see him working first?
Jake. And I'll tell you why. In my opinion, there have been 2 matches at the House of Pain that I think, in the tenure that I've watched, that are the standard. The very first Lord of the Rings championship match, Jake Davis and OGB in a TLC match. Was it TLC or just TLC match? In my opinion, is the greatest House of Pain match that I have ever seen. And I would argue that I believe we started at 99, and I think we left there in 2006, like kind of on a regular, as regular performers or regular wrestlers, and would come back. So that 7-year period, I think there were more shows in that 7-year period, counting NWL and House of Pain school shows, Tuesdays and Saturdays, than there probably has ever been, in that period.
Yeah,
so
sure.
if you take those 7 years, I think there was more shows in that period, and I was a guy that did the dubs, so I was the one that made
watched
the
them,
VHS.
yeah.
So I saw just about every match in the peak of the quantity of shows that was going on in the House of Pain. In my opinion, OGB, Jake Davis, Lord of the Rings 1 is the best House of Pain NWL match I've ever seen. They had Jake Davis 1 was the inaugural House of Pain Superior Lord of the Rings champion winner, and then 2 years later, I think it was 3 years later, maybe even a little bit longer, they had a rematch, the TLC rematch.
That was 2003, and the rematch was 2006, I believe.
Okay, so three years later, we came back once again. I think it was we got inducted in the Hall of Fame. I believe, and I may have won the NWL title that night. I can't remember.
It was a 4-way, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was you and Gutterboy and
That Tornado
Tornado.
and Egon Acton.
Wasn't that the same night that Robbie wrestled?
Yes, Hamburg.
Chris Hamburg, yeah.
Which
yes.
I thought that
And I
was
think
one of
you
those
were in
top matches.
I think you were in a triple threat with Brent Rage and somebody else, or maybe it was a 4-way. I can't remember.
I think I went out there against Brent Rage. I want to say I wrestled just him.
I think there was
The Rage sisters were the ones that brought me out.
I think there was a few people. I remember seeing a picture of it recently. Somebody had popped up somehow, but anyway.
So you guys, if I remember correctly,
It's amazing how you think of one detail about a show from 10, 12 years ago, you can all of a sudden start filtering it.
So you guys had the rematch, and I believe OGB went over in that match. So I'm not saying that you guys have never, that those are the only 2 matches that you guys have had. I'm sure that you've had more matches than that.
Yeah.
But when you think about when I think about Jake Davis versus OGB, I think about those 2 violent, physical, insane matches, and they're 1-1. If I were going to book, as selfishly, what would I want to see if OGB came back in? I'd like to see a rubber match. That's what I would book. That's me.
Sure.
The unfortunate thing is going to be that most of our fans don't know the history, unfortunately, except for the ones that are hearing about this now. But I can't put into words just how incredible those 2 matches were, especially that first Lord of the Rings match. I mean, I know we've talked before about that damn table.
Yeah.
But you lived it and you survived it, and OGB lived it and survived it.
Survived was a good term because Nick and OGB had a lot of back problems after that. I broke 2 ribs and broke a finger and had a concussion.
And I
barely remember John getting in the ring to give me the trophy.
I'm not.
It was insane.
I'm bringing this up for a point, and I'm bringing it up to, please bear with me. But like when Raditz and I had that match, I've seen him a couple of times since then, and he and I look at each other differently now. When we see each other, there's just a different look that we give each other than we ever gave each other before, because something, you made something cool happen. And what those guys did, I can't imagine that you guys don't have that same thing. Like when you see each other, you're like, it's like Taker and Foley. I can't imagine that when they see each other, if they're across the room and they see each other and they're sitting there talking to people, and the wrestling protocol is I got to shake hands. I got to imagine that everybody else has to wait a second because I got to go acknowledge that guy.
Yeah. Kind of like we waited when Flair and Funk saw each other in that hallway.
It's kind of like we put. Is there? I would say this, and I'm not pandering to Jake because he's my buddy. is there a Lord of the Rings 2, which I won, if there is not that incredible payoff at the end of that first show? Because you're talking about 40 wrestlers that show up, that travel, that do it. Those fans that night were treated to something, a great idea by John, a unique tournament, a unique concept of how you bring it down to two guys. Mm-hmm. But if those two guys don't deliver, do you ever do it again? And everybody was talking about, from the boys to the fans, everybody was talking about that match. Everybody knew that they just saw two guys who were willing to die that night to put on an incredible match. And I have yet to see its equal.
You know what? We're averaging right now between 12 and 1,500 listens and downloads a week on the podcast. And I got to believe, just from the statistics and the geography of those downloads that we're privy to, there has to be some people listening that were at that show. So I would encourage anybody that was at that show, send us some messages, give us some contact information, and just your perspective on that. I think that's a cool thing to do, and just to hear where what you saw, what you remember from that show, because everybody has their own perspective.
Yeah, it was cool, and at that time, everybody had I talk about the different mentalities between the younger guys and the older guys. And the mentality back then was you really, your health really came pretty far down the line as far as the list of things that you wanted to accomplish that night. And you and Rad-Ads took it to it. And I'm not saying people were sloppy. I'm just saying that it's controlled chaos. And I think that the insanity of looking at the dotted line and saying, yeah, I can't wait to get out there. And, it's not that somebody's going to accidentally get hurt. It's that you're willing to, because you need to create magic, and that's one of my favorite matches ever out of the thousands that I've had. But you and Radats did something similar because you reminded people what that was, and these days there's a lot lost in translation, and obviously it's feeding more into the mainstream TV wrestling. There's a lot of different mentalities and approaches on how to work and things like that I don't agree with. There's some that I do, but there's a lot of things that the younger guys, one, don't know or embrace, and two, don't think they need to, and I think they do. And I don't think that it needs to be a rip yourself to pieces kind of thing, but I think that they definitely need to respect and embrace that old school mentality while using hints of today's genre. It's kind of hard to explain unless you really lived it and understand what it's like between the ropes, but I think there's a lot lost in translation, and that's why you have a lot of guys, and not even talking about the elite roster, but in a way, some of it I am. There's a difference between some of these guys that have been around for a long time that are working main event matches, and some of the guys that believe that they should be in main event matches and aren't, and can't figure out why. Yeah. That's the reason why. Because there's a difference between, you can do every move in the book. I mean, there's a lot of guys that I see all over the place, elite and other places included, that can do a lot more athletic things than me, that have a much better gas tank than me, that have a much better physique than me, but they're missing something, and that's why they're not being known all over the place as fast as they would like to be. And it's just a matter of sifting through it and getting that one piece of the puzzle to put in place so they can make the full picture,
I don't know if this is right or if this is wrong. I agree with it. But Mick Foley has a quote that I'm paraphrasing. It's not word for word, but it's like, I knew sometimes I had to get hurt for history's sake. Yeah. And I love that. It was kind of like, and I remember after that match with Raditz, and my wife hates this fucking line, but I told her,
with the hatred that you said it.
She hated this. But I told her, I said, when that was over, I said, that was a feeling worth dying for. And she hated it. And I was
I wonder why.
Well, I mean, but Can you relate to
Yeah,
that?
and-
You know,
it's a hard thing. Like I said, it's a hard thing
it's-
for anybody that's never stepped through the ropes to feel or understand. No matter how much you try to explain it with words, you can't. You can't put it. And like,
I mean, I know what you're saying. I can also understand why your wife.
No,
would say,
no,
yeah.
I get it.
Especially when you're not
there's-
talking about making $1 million,
right? And
you know?
there's things that are kayfabe that I mean we know what I am supposed to and not supposed to do, and, you know, so but you know it was.
Whatever, that medical report's put away in the file cabinet. It's not like somebody's flashing that around a locker room.
But anyway, so I think it was one of the young guys. I won't say any names to protect him, but one
If I can tell
To
who it is,
protect the belligerent.
if I can tell in the story who it is, I'm definitely calling him out.
You're going to know. You're going to know. But
It's bad for
I heard this. I heard this story from Jake. One of a younger guy. It tweaked himself, knee, ankle. I can't remember what it was, and it said something about like, "Hey, I'm banged up. I can't work tonight. I can't wrestle tonight." And he said, "So and of course, classic Jake. Jake's like, oh well, you sure? Because I mean, we got to reshuffle some stuff." And Jake's, and he doesn't. Jake's not going to try to talk you out of it, but he's just going to kind of like, all right, well, we'll do what you got to do. But then he goes, yeah, well, don't go tell Leatherman over there, because he kind of like, I guess he motioned at me or something. You have to tell, and I'm sitting there putting on layers of wrap and tape on my legs. And he's like, yeah, don't tell Leatherman, because this fucking doctor told him he'd never wrestle again. So you might not want to go tell him that you're not going to wrestle because there's a fucking bruise on your pinky. Or does that ring a bell to you?
Well, there were several times that I've had people come up to me and tell me that, especially, and even more so before the night, because they still want their moment, but at the end of the night, when it comes time to clean it up, like loading the ring up or whatever. Sean Hudson was one of them, and Mayville. Let me see. Who was the other one? There was a couple of them. But anyway, like somebody come up and they'll accent their limp after I had already watched them, because I'm overseeing everybody what they're doing. So Anthony ate him. If you're talking to your girlfriend when everybody else is carrying chunks of the ring, you should probably not, because I notice everything that's going on in the building. But across the board, hey, everybody can laugh about that. But the fact is that I've been in almost 20 years now. Whenever I'm mopping the floor and I look over and guys that's been working for a year or 2 or 3 or 4 or 6 or 8 are standing around, bullshitting with their kids, or
it's the most
talking to their girls, or they're on their phones outside texting. I'm like,
I'm with you.
right, well,
it's the most infuriating thing in the world.
It's unbelievable, and that, I mean, I'm saying this half jokingly and half angrily. If there's nothing. It amazes me. That's the part that's been lost in translation with that, is that we're way cooler than most promoters that you'll ever come across, especially when we were coming up. Because if you were caught, I mean, there wasn't everybody in the world didn't have a cell phone whenever we were coming up. But if you were outside bullshitting with your girlfriend, or you're playing with your kids, or texting on your phone, or whatever it was, while shit was supposed to be done, you would not be allowed back ever. It only took one time. So that kind of stuff is amazing. But it's not just us. It's not Elite. Because Elite's probably the best forum of that, like the best product of that situation, going the good way. The bad way, now everywhere you go, it's like at that 20-year event, when you are the guy in the main event or whatever it is, you still feel like, damn, I should help with this ring because there's only 3 guys over there. Then you go outside to leave, and you look around, there's like 12 of them standing outside bullshit and smoking a cigarette. It's like, what is going on here?
I was at the school one night, and I'm not going to pretend, because I don't. You guys do a lot more, and the young guys. I don't hold a whole lot of rings around these days, but I did go down to the school one time to load up the truck, and I remember loading it up, and like 4 or 5 people showed up. Yeah. And I remember looking at 2 of those people. One was Anthony Adam, the other one was Tarvin. And I remember, as I'm carrying something much heavier than I wanted to be carrying that particular moment, out, I was in fucking Piper's Pit. What the fuck is going on here? I was like, motherfucker, are you shitting me? I was fucking sitting there degrading Roddy Piper in Piper's Pit, and I'm fucking carrying this shit, and these motherfuckers out here are like, well, I'm sorry, I can't make it because, no, I'll show up to play wrestler.
Yeah.
And be a superstar, but... And then that fucking guy was crying at court the other day.
Get off your soapbox, damn it. But, so to come around to my point. Me and Lance had a fantastic match last.
And TJ Sykes didn't want to wrestle that night, and Jake told him.
Oh yeah, okay. I was trying to put it together. It was Petersburg. It was Petersburg. That's where it was.
Oh, okay.
I was like, why are you here? I don't understand.
I remember that.
No, I mean,
It reminded me of when he
you can
told
always
me that.
find something to bust somebody's balls
I
with.
remember Diamond Dallas Page. I read Diamond Dallas Page's book, which I really loved. I'm a huge fan of DDP the person, and I thought the DDP the wrestler was improved leaps and bounds.
He came along quick. Like he went from being
He did, and he was an old guy when he started. Older, you know what I mean?
Was he 35?
Yeah, I mean, he was, so he did. But I remember there's this one part in his book, and he's talking about how fucking sore he is. He's all beat up, and he's banged up, and his knees are killing him, his back is killing him and stuff. And he said that he went to go grab a bite to eat, and he said that he sat down, and Terry Funk was sitting there, and he's in fucking misery. And Terry Funk's like Griff's right across the table from me right now, so our eyes are locked on each other. And he's like, I'm in fucking misery, and I'm sitting there going, I can't complain a bit because fucking Terry Funk's sitting there.
Yeah.
How do I complain to Terry Funk about, well, Terry, my body's so beat up from wrestling. Oh, really? So you're telling me that you've taken a bump or two? So, I mean, I can only imagine, fuck, but that's the difference. That's why DDP's in the Hall of Fame, because, boys, he kept his fucking mouth shut. He wrote about it in the book, and he probably sold a lot of it.
Even when an onion ring posed as a French fry on his plate.
one of my favorite Terry Funk lines is and you talk about pressure, and I was never a butterflies in the stomach guy, but pressure was when the kid and I worked that show, the League Goes Big Time show in 2013, and Funk was the referee, and we're taping up.
Was that the night I was in the ring with Flair?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it was Funk. And Funk's sitting there, and we're taping up, and I mean, we're getting ready because we already, we have a concept of some things, and I knew what toys were under the ring, and it ended up being a hellacious match, and one of my favorites of all time. But
me too.
He's sitting there, and he's just, he's so cool, and he was so with us off in this little corner of the locker room, and as I'm taping up, and I mean, I'm going about 2 inches below my elbow on my forearm, all the way to my hands. And tape my fingers and everything because I knew it was going to be a war. And Gallows was the same way. The kid was taping up too. And Funk just, what the hell did I get myself into, boys? You guys are taping up for war. And I was like, oh shit! Now we made it obvious to him that something's going to happen. So the dial had to be turned up from the get go. And I had mentioned on here before that he was very proud and happy of the match and told us so afterwards. But going into it, whenever when he said that, I was like, oh shit, yeah, okay. It all kind of came down like a ton of bricks. Like, damn it! And now we really have to go out there and have a war because Terry Funk's expecting one now.
What did he say when you guys came back through?
If I remember correctly, he was like, "You boys did it right.
Yeah.
You just did it right. That's exactly what that match needed to be, and you guys did it." And
yeah, he was already back in the locker room by the time I got out because. I think you and the kid and him walked out together, and I was still laying on the far side of the ring.
Yeah,
By the time I got back, he was already sitting down on a bench in the locker room whenever I came back. And, I think I ran into you and the kid in the hallway, so it took a minute or two. So he had time to get back in there and get settled. And
the fans, or anybody that's listening, workers, whoever they are, Terry's really, I do the voice, but he's so soft-spoken. Really, you've got to lean in to hear him.
He's almost whispering.
But you don't want to fucking miss a word because it's Terry Funk. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
awesome. Whatever he's saying is going to be, if you're a pro wrestler and Terry Funk is saying something, it's probably going to be the most poignant thing that you've ever
it was
heard.
Awesome. He was another guy that was just offering up random stories because it was something we were talking about reminded him of it. So it was really cool.
I remember because I think we all talked to him a little bit. I think he kind of talked to the three of us. We were all kind of he was sitting on the bench, all kind of did we squat down? I feel like
when I first came in, I think you guys may have talked, and we ended up coming back around to him a little while later. But when I came in, he was sitting there, and a couple of the other guys that were on the show that were some of the big time guys.
This was the last match, so folks were clear now.
Yeah,
I came back, and I mean, I had thumbtacks all over me and the speed up and everything, and I had cracked a rib in that match. And I thought I swallowed a thumbtack, which I didn't. I had to wait a few days to find out if it destroyed my innards. But so when I got back to the locker room or whatever, I squatted down and and my knees are bad anyway. But I squatted down and leaned down on my knees, like, because I was sitting on my knees beside him while he was sitting on the bench. And I reached out, and he reached out his hand to shake my hand, and I basically lowered my forehead onto his hand, almost like that. You're the king kind of. It was almost that, but I thanked him so much for being a part of it, that it meant so much to me that he was out there, and then, as you said, it was very similar. First he went, GD boys, you guys did it right, and he took the thumbtack and pulled it out of my head, because I had a couple in my head, I had a couple on my shoulders and stuff, and he's like pulling them off of me, and I'm just seeing him like yanking. And when you get them in your head, especially on your scalp, because I don't have hair, so there's no, it doesn't get tangled. So whenever it goes in, I don't know if it's hitting your skull or what it is, but the point a lot of times when you hit it hard will flatten in a way that when you go to pull it out of your skin, it catches almost like a fish hook would do. So when you pull it, you can feel the skin, and it hurts, and it's hard to get out, and then it finally lets go and it pulls through, but it sucks. Well, he's pulling them out. Of course, you're not selling something like that, but he's pulling them out, and I mean, he's pulling it to where he's pulling like with his fingernail, and then it finally lets go, and he did it like 2 or 3 times to get the ones that were in the top of my head, and he gives me that pat on the shoulder and stuff, like, and tells me what he thought of it, how much he enjoyed the match, and how so many boys are not willing to do that right, and that made me proud, and it made me think, what the hell was I trying to do all them years, because you boys really stepped it up out there. And I was like, all right, Terry, now I feel like you're lying to me.
Yeah.
Because he's the one that made it famous, and he's the one that did it better than anybody, and just the fact that we got to put on our version of it in front of him, and he liked it. It was unbelievable. And then the next night in Altoona, when we went over and did which sucked because I did the cracked rib in the 6-man. We did. It was, I believe it was me, you, and Shorty in the 6-man.
With Crane in our corner
Against Anthony Adam.
Anthony Adam in his first show.
His first match ever. And it was like
on the Flair show.
1,400 people there.
Yeah, Flair show in an arena.
And then we had, it was him, Tarvin, and Brandon Scott.
Yeah,
I was trying to find it on my phone, but there's also a great shot of Funk pulling tax out the kid. That Tim Walker caught, which was
the listeners
was
will be able to see it. It's cool.
I'll tell you what was a great moment. There was what's wrong?
We'll just post it later. Maybe the listeners can see it.
Well, I'll tell you what was awesome was whenever I want to kayfabe a little bit, but there was a barbed wire situation that happened in that match, in which Jake took barbed wire and wrapped it around in the rope. And I just remember at one point Jake going, "I stole that from you and Sabu." Do you remember that?
Well, I told him beforehand. I said,
it was. That's what it was beforehand.
And he's like, "What are we thinking?" And because everything he said was like, I was like, "What? So what are we thinking?"
It started on top of the cage.
What are we gonna do out there, boys? What are we thinking? Because he wasn't, he didn't have a part in, like, he was the rep, but it's not like he was out there taking the bumps. And so everything, like, when we're sitting there, he was wondering what, just to try to get, I think, a concept of because I'm sure he went around and there was a lot of people that thought, I'm going to do hardcore match because Terry Funk's here, and he's probably seen a lot of shit. He's probably seen a lot of great things, and probably everything in between. So he didn't, you never know what to expect until you actually see it. And so what are we thinking, boys? I said, well, I got one idea that I stole from you and Sabu from the barbed wire match. He's like, oh, let me tell you about that one.
And I think he kind of, awesome. I think he kind of actually did a little like he laughed.
Yeah, he liked the fact that there was like that. I wanted to take something from him and try to make myself better.
Yeah, it wasn't scoffing. It was like, wow. He
was so cool. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, I'll say this too. And I mean, obviously, because he's my kid. And Jake says that's creepy, but it is. It is. It takes a lot for a guy like Gallows who's truthfully, his bread and butter is wrestling, and he could get, if he, especially at that particular time, he was on a WWE contract.
In the words of Terry Silver, you could have just stayed there and let him kick your ass.
But
because I go full force, doesn't matter who it is.
He basically went out there, and I mean, if he got hurt at that particular point, he didn't get any money coming in. But he went out there because this was his hometown. This was his buddies.
That match was his idea. And, he's the one that pushed for it.
And I mean, it was just, for a guy that had accomplished what he had at that time, a name guy to come in and to agree to that kind of match, and take those kind of bumps.
Again, he didn't agree to it. he called and said, "This is our hometown," or he had a lot of expletives in there, but he said, "This is our effing hometown. I want to go in and have our match," because we had already done the series down the
Georgia.
all the Georgia bouts as it was coined, and all these brutal matches. We had a lot of promoters down that way that was offering us legitimately thousands of dollars to go around and do that match all over the place, and then he ended up going to Japan, and but he said, "This is our hometown. This is our town. I want to steal the show. I want to make sure that everybody on that show is beneath us, whether we're last or not." And then I said, "Well, I think we could probably get Terry to be the referee." And he was like, "You do that, and we're taking that show, or not."
And then it was like,
he was the one. He's like, "I want it to be as brutal as any match we've ever had, which is more brutal than any match that I've ever seen anybody have." So, I mean, I don't know if we actually reached that point, but we definitely reached the match that
I just remember
put at the top of my list as my favorite match.
I just remember him saying, "We just need a brilliant mind to come up with the greatest finish in the history of Elite Pro."
So once Leatherman took Flair down to the bar, then
what's Leatherman's number?
I remember telling, not to get into too much detail, but I remember when we were putting that show together and we were working.
That's a good fucking match, though.
We were working with those guys to do that joint show. And remember, we had a pretty short list, and that was one of the things. And I remember being on the phone with the people that we were talking to run that, and I remember thinking, man, this is the biggest show we've ever been a part of, in the promotion end. And I remember thinking, I don't want this to sound like I'm trying to say this is the way it has to be, but this is kind of where we all kind of agreed it had to be. And it was like, well, we're thinking this should be the main event. We were thinking Doc Gallows and Jake James, our guy, needs to be the main event. And it's like, oh, it doesn't seem like it'd be a problem. And I was like, we also need Funk to be the special guest referee. Can we do that too? And he's like, let me check. And then I just remember sitting there waiting for about 10 minutes for him to call back. And he called back and said, looks like we can do that. Yeah, he's okay with that. And I just remember thinking,
because at that point,
I don't want to be an asshole, but I'm... How big of an asshole are we going to be?
It worked out perfect, because at that point, Terry was doing the autographs, and he was doing the meet and greets, but he wasn't...
Right.
Obviously, he wasn't competing on the show. He wasn't wrestling. So he was going to be... And he was happy to be a part. Once he got there, and again, there wasn't anything that was... He wasn't booked into what he ended up doing on the show. That wasn't part of his booking.
Right.
When he was there, he was willing to get involved.
Right. I'll tell you, and this story I'm sure I've told on the podcast
like Dreamer
before.
says, you can't keep him out of the ring if he's at a show.
I'm going to tell it again just because it's so fucking beautiful. But I remember the three of us. There's a couple pictures of the three of us, Jake, Gallows, and myself. That I think Tim took them, or some, I don't know exactly who took them, to be honest. I think it was Tim, but we were talking about ideas and everything like that. And of course, these were the guys that had, I tried to stroke myself there, but these are the guys that had to go out there and do it. You know
Sure.
what I mean? But the whole idea was to have Terry do what Terry did, and then do the big bump to Jake at the end because the heel was going over to finish the show. So let's let the hardcore icon of icons, do the bump to the biggest asshole on the show at the end of the night and send everybody home happy, which Jake was playing the asshole that night. And it was a stretch for him. It was a stretch for him, but he pulled it off.
Most nights.
But
just ask Belinda.
I'll never... I just remember... I remember two things. I remember we were like... I think we kind of tried to put it on Gallows to pitch to Terry about, the push. Jake would push him back and forth. Jake would go to throw a big right at the end. Terry would block it and counter and give Jake the big bump to send the people home happy. And so we put it on Gallows, and I think that the three of us are sitting there and we're talking. And Gallows had already been a huge star. Already wrestled Undertaker, already staying all the, he'd already done all this stuff. And I remember as he's telling Terry the story, it's like, so, when the match is over, Jake will go to hit you with a big right, and you'll block it, and then you'll hit him. And while he's telling him it, Terry's just shaking his head no, while Gallows is still talking. He's shaking his head no. And we're all kind of like, all right, well. And he goes, it'd be better if I ducked it because I got to come back with the big left. And we're like... that'll work. That'll work just fine.
Yes, sir.
And so we all walked out the door of the locker room back into that little hallway in the back, and it's just the three of us. And we walked out, and Gallows, who had done everything, was like, he's going to do it.
This is the guy who at that point had already wrestled the Undertaker on SmackDown.
Shawn Michaels and Triple H.
He'd been at WrestleMania, like, at ringside.
Some Country Roads was seen after countless house shows.
He goes, he's going to do it. But that's Terry Funk. That was so special because this is Terry Funk.
He was never going to tell you he wouldn't do something. He'll just tell you how he's going to do it better.
But he did. He goes, no. Be better if I ducked it. And we're like, oh, yeah, well.
And that moment was awesome.
We can make that work.
I'm ducking that shot. I mean, it looked pretty stiff.
Yeah, because he punched me in the face.
And then he grabs...
very similar to the way Foley wouldn't line in his book when he said, why does Terry Funk's punches look good? Because he punched you in the face.
Yeah.
Punched me right in the face. It was awesome. I mean, like, I was already hurt and injured in that night. So, but I didn't feel it at the time. It was the next day that it felt horrible. But that punch was as stiff as any punch I've ever had in my life. Not in the ring, and not during some street fight on the floor, but in real life situations where I was trading hands with someone. I've never had anyone punch me as hard as he did that moment.
But you wouldn't have it any other way, right?
No, not at all. And I love it. And I encourage anybody that I work, as long as it can be done with semi-safely,
hard
to
and safe
do that.
places.
Exactly. I'm not looking to spit my teeth on the floor or have somebody pop my nose back into place, but I'd rather sit there in slow motion and watch me get punched in the face than have somebody in the crowd say that didn't even land.
Yeah, I'll never. I'm sorry. I'll never forget though, whenever the crescendo of that finish is coming, and Terry comes because I'm at the ringside table there. And Terry running by me, and he puts his hand on my shoulder, and he goes, and he just keeps moving. But like he looks like he's using me to turn the corner. Yeah. And to be honest with you, I think when Terry's in wrestling mode, like Terry hopped up.
I don't
and
think
he
feels on it. Yeah, because when he got to the show, when we saw him in the back hallway there by the locker room,
that guy is not the same guy who was at ringside.
He was practically like a first-time roller skater. He had his hand on the wall as he's walking down the hallway. Then I'm standing out by the ring with Brandon Scott, and Funk came through the big curtain and walked down the aisleway to come by the ring. I guess just kind of get a feel for the steps and the ring and everything else. And he walks, as soon as he gets about 6 steps away from the stairs to the ring, he does that jog in place, and he got his shoulders going up, and he does that, and I'm like, well, Terry Funk right there.
Yeah,
he's not the grandfatherly type guy in the hallway. Yeah. He walks out to the ring, and as soon as he got there, and then he starts walking up the stairs and like going around the post, and he's getting in the ring, and I'm like, yeah, this is awesome. This is going to be a good night. That was what set it. And
he runs that corner. He does a little post on my shoulder as he turns the corner. He goes, "Here we go!" And I was like, "Fucking right."
It was like a whisper in the wind.
I was like, "Terry Funk just called spot to me." And then when it's all said and done, and he gives Jake the big left, and Jake takes the bump, and Jake's in the thumbtacks. The crowd comes up, and he looks at me, and I'm not going to use GD like Jake did because this is a quote. I can't misquote Terry Funk. He goes, "This is crazy and goddamn ECW. ECW." He's yelling at me. And I'm going, "You're right."
You're being scolded.
I understand. I'm sorry. He goes, ECW. And I'm like, God damn, Terry Funk is yelling at me. I told you did the charity thing.
I'm sorry.
Jake had that beautiful little thing where he had the kendo stick hooked down into the ring post. And I remember
him. A few interesting little hiding spots in that.
So Jake pulls it out, kind of like fucking Excalibur being pulled out of the. He pulls it out.
It was awesome about that too, because we had fought all the way around the room. As soon as I rolled in to go after that, right before I got to the post, the chant of "This is awesome" started, and it started getting louder. Almost like the wave, like I could hear it almost coming from different sides of me as it was starting to pick up around the room. So you could hear it before I reached the post. And I remember thinking, I'm looking at the post, and one, because it was on a little hook, and like the little strap that went to the handle of the kendo stick was just on a hook inside the post. So I'm thinking, please don't drop this hook, because if I drop it down on the post, there's no way to get it. But right as I reached for it, I went, they haven't even seen this yet. And then I pull it out, and like the hush goes over the crowd because it was about to see the next.
So everybody else, like, ooh, except for Terry Funk, picked up a fucking chair and throws it.
And it wasn't
at Jake.
like a folding metal steel chair. It was one of those big Kaiser chairs. It
It's
was
a
like
big fucking
45-pound
He
folding
throws it
chair.
at Jake. Now, it does not hit Jake. It does not enter the ring. What it does is, it hits the top and second rope, and it bounces back to the timekeeper's table where I'm fucking sitting. And it kind of like hits me, and I'm sitting there going, Jesus! And I remember, and I know I've said this before, but it bears repeating. I remember going, fuck, Terry Funk just hit me with a chair. And then I went, Terry Funk just hit me with a chair. And it was the same sentence.
I remember him throwing it, it bouncing right
It bounced back and it hit me. And I'm like,
You're totally oblivious to you're watching the match. You're not even.
I'm on blood thinner!
And you can see this on YouTube, people. Put in Luke Gallows versus Jake the Machine Davis. It's one of the first things to come up. As soon as he throws it, Leatherman's just sitting there with his hands in his side, and all of a sudden he throws them up.
It's as though a swarm of bees has come at me.
Your firearms are useless against them.
Bees!
They're everywhere.
I remember thinking to myself, me and Terry are going to have this talk in the back. We never had that talk, folks. I saw that left-handed and Jake with it, and I went, he's old. I'll forgive him. I'm going to let it slide this time, Terry.
Yeah, that was...
That's classic. Boy, we went on a tirade about that one match. We've been talking about a lot of Jake the Machine Davis matches. We should do this every week.
Well, yeah.
Instead of what's your favorite match on YouTube or the network, what's your favorite Jake the Machine Davis match?
my favorite one ever, and I've seen a lot of them. My favorite one...
I was kidding, but go on.
No, my favorite one
I
ever.
digress.
My favorite one ever was the show after the Bunkhouse Battle Royal, where you expected Brian Leslie Leatherman expected Jake to do him the favor and be eliminated. Remember, Gino Sammartino came out, and basically you guys were a team at the time, and basically Gino wanted to be the one to win so that you didn't have to defend the title against Jake. Jake won it, and then the next show...
the old bunkhouse.
Yeah, after the Bunkhouse Battle Royal, you guys wrestled for the CPW title. And
Is that the one from Romney?
Was it Romney?
Yeah.
That was up to that point, and I'd have to revisit it to say that that's still not true. But up to that point, that was the best wrestling match I'd ever seen. Period. I love that match.
While there was some there was some intense moments and there was some hard hitting aspects of it. It was far from like a hardcore match.
No.
Right.
It's probably my favorite wrestling match I've ever had.
And it was
really
story
is.
driven because one thing that
It had been
CPW
building
and
for
Shane Shadows
probably a year.
did
Yeah.
really well was they build those stories and it percolated over the course
Shane
of a
did a
year.
great job. I'll tell you what, I think I've said too. It's one of my all time favorites. I think Jake's right because, like, I'll look at me and Raditz, like you'll look at you and OGB or you and Drew and the stuff that you did and everything, and it doesn't. Those matches are just different. It's kind of like comparing Foley and Taker Hell in a Cell to Brett and Sean's Iron Man match.
Sure.
You know, Foley and Taker had one of the most visually unbelievable matches I've ever seen in my life, and it took pain and threshold and passion to another level. But then the other one is kind of an art form. The other one is just it's kind of like it's not as many toys, it's not as many weapons, it's just two guys going out there and they're telling a story and they're wrestling. And for me, that is the best I ever was in a match. Partially because of my opponent, majority because of my opponent, but I was in the best shape of my life. And we went out that particular night, and it's definitely on my short list of favorite
Well, I think that
matches.
match, not so much you, because even now you go out and you work good matches. You show people that you are a worker. I especially in the last several years, I've been typecast because there's been some type of story or some type of thing that has led me to the point where I got typecast into those matches that had the brutal, barbaric style. But a lot of people, especially the younger people in the lower half of the card or the younger half of the roster, didn't get to see me wrestle in those wrestling matches.
If I could just correct you a little bit, you and Brandon was badass, and that was just recently. And I mean, you guys took a little walk around the building.
And I mean,
but
you're
for
always
the
going to
most
have a little
part,
intensity and things like that, and that's what I was saying about that. Like we fought around the building a little bit and things like that, but it wasn't booked. It wasn't set up to be a blood and guts war.
Right,
you know
that
what I mean?
wasn't the draw.
And I think that a lot of times I get typecast in that role because it was some type of main event style match. It's not like an ego thing. It's just that's the way it was. Like,
Right.
I worked for 15 years, and those were usually the matches that ended up standing out and ended up pushing it to the forefront. But I'm as proud of that match as any match I've ever had.
It was awesome.
Just because it really. And like Leatherman said, he was in great shape. We were very close to the same size and weight. I think I may have even been a little bit heavier than him. Of course, him being taller than me by a few inches, it was a nice contrast because we were very similar and we had been tag teaming for a while, and so of course we knew each other so well, and to go into that match, I mean, it was just.
I haven't seen that match in quite a while, and I
have the match somewhere, but it was before the YouTube craze, so it's not on YouTube. I'd like to get it and find somebody to transfer it over because I mean it's a great match.
Well,
I mean, I'd put that up against anything that I've done.
And
we're still talking about that.
I could be mistaken. You tell me, but it seems to me that was too. If it wasn't the first time you did it, it was kind of entering because I mean you were slimmed down, and that was among the first times where you started taking those clotheslines back into the ring backwards. Am I right on that?
Well, no, actually, kind of, sort of like I started taking those down at the House of Pain.
Oh,
But,
wow. Really?
But that was, I always tell the young guys, that's how I practiced taking it over to the floor.
Right.
Was to do it like that. But the first time I ever took it was against Kevin Featherstone at the House of Pain.
Oh, okay.
But, but I was probably, I'd say I was about 285 in that match. I wrestled as light as about 265. And I didn't feel right at 265, like, for wrestling. Like, I really didn't feel...
Well, yeah, I was probably 270, 275, something like that. So, I was probably... With your height advantage on me, and we looked so similar because I was probably a little bit thicker and heavier. With him being taller, we were very similar. We looked like we were almost...
There's a part in the match where... Belinda yells out, "Get him, Jake! He's just a little guy."
That's great.
Kind of funny.
You can hear it over the rest of the
but
audience.
It was. I'll tell you what was a great compliment to us was that Stuart Flanagan, and this, I don't mean this is an insult to the rest of the card. Please don't take it that way. This is just a quote, but just a great dude, and Jake's father-in-law, who's no longer with us, but he said. Looked like amateur hour till you boys came out, or something like that. I think, didn't he?
He said. He said, "I'll always come to watch you guys wrestle because it looks like the difference between Pee Wee football and an NFL team."
Yeah,
it was something like that. And I mean, obviously, in a way, he was, but he's not. He was not a guy. Some of the way we talk about Rambo, like he doesn't shower. He didn't shower people with compliments unless they deserved them. So I'll tell you. I always took that to heart.
I'll tell you how special that match was to me. Tyler Steele, who I have a ton of respect for, and like you corrected me, he was the first guest on our podcast, Primal Conflict, which is, I think, just an excellent organization. He's very good friends with Switchblade, and Switchblade is somebody that all of us respect and have a ton of respect for, and just a great guy. I get an email from Tyler Steele, maybe like Wednesday that week. It was a Saturday show, so the following Wednesday,
right,
and. Trent is Switchblade in this email, and he says Trent is Switchblade's given name.
Yeah.
And he said, I just wanted to send this to you. He said, I asked Trent how the show went the other night, the CPW show went. He goes, it was fine. And he said, how was the crowd? And he said, it was good. He goes, everybody did all right? He goes, yeah, it was all right. He goes, how was Leatherman and Davis? He said, it was the best match I've seen in years. And he said, now you have to understand, when he says fine and good, he said that's how he describes everything that he likes. Like Star Wars is like his favorite movie. He may not have said Star Wars, but Star Wars is his favorite movie. He's like, yeah, Star Wars was fine.
Yeah.
He said, so for him to say that was the best match that he has seen in years, he said, you guys must have really done something special. Congratulations. And that was an unprompted. Yeah. This is before Facebook, before MySpace.
Right. It was like an email.
This was an email from Tyler Steele, and he sent that to me, and I remember.
He sent it to compliment Leatherman at yahoo.com.
Yeah, there's a whole website to
I
it
would
now.
say it was pretty clogged.
Please post. I'm afraid that it's not working, but I mean, my shit's going through fine. But But anyway, I mean, now think about that. To get it's kind of a two-handed compliment or a twofold compliment because you're getting Switchblade's compliment to you. But then you're getting Tyler Steele saying to you, wow, you boys must have done. And by boys, he was not meant, we're the boys. You know what I mean? And anyway, I remember telling Jake that. I was like, dude, I got this. And I don't really know what to think about it. like I was so flattered.
Cool,
it's
though.
just kind of like, because I thought it was cool. But, I think everything I do is cool. So it's hard for me to discern when I'm not being cool. I don't know what
I don't understand when I don't want to be cool. That's great. What do you got? Let's hear some of your match fun stories.
Oh, geez,
like some
I'm having a
background.
good
Like
time listening to these
go into
stories.
some.
Well, tell our story.
You know what? I dig and like.
We're going to sway just slightly from just
This
Leatherman
happened for
stories.
a while.
Tell a match with Leatherman versus Griffin.
Fuck this. This has been Jake Davis hour.
Hey,
Fuck that.
there's not enough Jake Davis hours. I usually sit back here and let you talk about your fucking self all the time. But anyway, no, I'll tell you something that I liked in Elite Pro, and this has been something that's been off and on and filtered in, and the fans have never been privy to this, but a lot of the boys have. There's been a lot of backstage pictures and cool moments that were captured, whether they were just, very impromptu, just like a lot of times the boys didn't even know they were being taken, but like very cool moments, well-timed snapshots in the back. Like you were mentioning about how Tim Walker was in the back there when we were in the hallway and it was me and the kid and you. But there's been a lot of those moments, and it's been like, whether it's been in private messages, whatever, but, I dig the behind-the-scenes stuff, which is why I like these stories like we're talking about, like what we thought at this moment or what we dealt with prior to the match or what the reaction was after the match or whatever. Yeah. And the fans never really get to see that thing, and that's probably why the network is that's why the network is as, I think, sought after by the fans, because they get to see the things they don't typically get to see. You know what I mean? And that's always my kind of thing, especially as a worker. I mean, you can watch matches all the time, but it's hard to be a fan again after you step through the ropes. Yeah. Like, and sit there and watch it objectively. You're looking at it like, wow, that's awesome. Wow, I wish I could do that. Or wow, I did that. Or wow, that wasn't as good as I could have done. Or that wasn't as good as it could have been. Or that was better than it should have been. There's a million different things, but you never get to objectively look at it like a fan again once you're a wrestler. Yeah, right. But when you look behind the scenes, I pop for that stuff more. I'm a big fan of like the podcasts, like this one. But like, I listen to the Jericho podcast and the Austin podcast because I like to hear some legit things behind the scenes, and I love those pictures. That was kind of one of my favorite things about that. I mean, it's always cool to get great action shots that were. But there's been there was a picture from the Kaiser Fire Hall where Leatherman's standing there with Shane Douglas and the Patriot, and yeah, there it is. And and it was just one of those things that, like, when are you going to see that anywhere? When are you going to, even if it's booked, Leatherman's not going to be standing there smiling while he's talking to Shane Douglas and the Patriot. Right. You know what I mean? And there's been so many opportunities like that, and you almost feel like there should be one of those. What was the True Hollywood Story camera crews following you around?
Yeah.
A lot of the kids won't remember that because I don't even think it's around anymore. But like, you should have a camera in the locker room if it wasn't against protocol all the time, just because that's where the coolest moments are that people want to see, but they don't get to.
You, Griff, made a fantastic video that caught behind-the-scenes stuff down in Georgia.
And then there was a couple.
What was it? What you?
It was a couple to lead. It was behind after the bell.
After the bell, and I mean that was fantastic.
I watched that pretty regularly, just because
it's so
and not because you're sitting here, but like the editing was perfect. Everything about it captured that. It was probably over the course of maybe 4 or 5 months total, because there was 3 of the Georgia bouts with Gallows, and there was some of the matches with Vince. Whenever I was having a heated feud with him, just after the matches with Gallows down in Georgia, so I had kind of rivaling feuds going on in Elite and down in WrestleMania and in the infancy of WrestleMania, but I mean, and they were 2 of the most brutal, coolest feuds I've ever had, and ended up bringing in, like you said, the match with Funk, but like several of the best matches with those two guys, but the best matches of my career. And they both brought them out of me for different reasons, but you managed to capture the essence of what those whole angles...
And you out of them.
But you managed to capture the essence out of both those angles and put them together. And the fact that 2011 into the early stages of 2012 was, despite the earlier stuff, was probably the most brutal. I was in so much pain at that time that it was insane.
And the other thing too, like I always wanted to be able to make like short films, but the documentary stuff was what I personally enjoyed doing the most. And I got to give credit where credit's due, because I didn't set out to say, hey, I'm going to make this film and I'm going to capture this footage and I'm going to line this up. Like I would say, there was a lot of it that just for posterity we were trying to tape, like the night before that big show, when you're like at the end, like I just thought that was good stuff for us to have. We both did. Yeah. But a lot of that, I mean, Belinda filmed a ton of that. Like, I mean, I appreciate the tip of the hat for putting the documentary together, but a documentary can only be as good as the footage that was captured, and I had the benefit of Belinda really stepping in there and so many times and getting some of that footage that I didn't even know was filmed. And what I would take credit for more is maybe sifting through and extrapolating to put that film together, but it never could have been done without all the stuff she got. It was definitely a team effort, yeah. And she did a ton of good work on that.
It was kind of a, to quote Bob Ross, like a happy accident. I think that it's like it was there. You had the desire to do something like this, and the intelligence, the foresight to be like, something like this would be cool. And then as you start looking at it, it was like, this is exactly what I was thinking.
Well, and I would also argue too that it had an intimacy to it. I thought, it's behind the scenes, but it felt like. And at the end of the day, and again, that's why I give Belinda a lot of credit on that, is because nobody else was going to be standing there 2 inches from your face when you were gluing it together in your hotel room. Yeah, like even if there were moments
that were so far removed from what a locker room situation would be.
Well, and even if you said, "Hey guys, come over and film me," nobody besides your wife is going to be comfortable in that moment. You know what I mean? Yeah. So to have that footage, that was just a priceless.
It got as intimate of a moment as you could. I'll tell you that one of those, it was the one where I bruised McKinney on the bleachers, the third one. That was the one where I wish that there was footage, because all I have is the memory of as bad as that match was and as bad as I was brutalized, and I couldn't.
Not as bad, like, for the fans. It's physically bad.
I literally could not move. Like, I couldn't walk. When I got to the back, I'm standing there, but I'm standing straight as a board, because my posture is typically not that great. But when you see the third installment of that, when all the chairs were thrown in on me, I'm standing straight up as stiff as a board because I couldn't move my back at all. And as long as I stood, I could stand, because during the match I couldn't feel my legs and I thought my back was broke. Once I was standing in the back, then I was okay. But once I got in the car to leave to go back to the hotel, because Gallows and everybody was staying in the same hotel, by the time I rode the whatever it was, 35 minutes back to the hotel, I couldn't get out of the car. Like, I opened the door and I couldn't get out, and I'm trying to, I'm literally with both hands trying to lift my first leg to put it on the ground because I couldn't move. And then Gallows reaches in, gets my arm, and pulls my other leg out of the car, and he's the one that basically is carrying me. And I mean, I'm not Mikey and Goonies when his brother's got him in a headlock on the porch whenever he's dragging him away, his feet are dragging. But I'm barely walking, and he is up under me, and he's got my arm holding on to me. Practically fireman's carrying me, but basically walking me in to go to our hotel room. Puts me in the hotel room, and Danny Giamondo was in there too, and he was on the show. Then he was hanging out because he was staying in the same hotel, and he rode with Gallows back to the hotel. And he was walking with us, and Belinda was bringing our bags and stuff like that, and we went back to the room. But then the four of us hung out in the room for a long time, but I was sitting up in bed with pillows jammed under my back, and I'm sitting there, and he's going down and getting the ice, and he's and at this point he'd already been in WWE, he had already gone all over the place. And that's what people don't get to see. They saw us brutalize each other in that match, and just the most insane shit you've ever thought of. But then they didn't see the fact that I was up shit creek trying to get out of the car, and he was the one that carried me to the room. And people never got to see that.
I wasn't there for that show, but I know we did that 6-man tag over in Pittsburgh for John and in the NWL. It was the three of us against John, Samu, and Rocky DeCola with.
Making my back hurt just talking about these matches.
Luscious Johnny V managed us. And Dominic DeNucci was a special guest referee.
Yeah.
And Jake takes a hip toss.
Off the second story balcony.
Second story balcony on the cushion like
Conrad
sand.
Brooks. Conrad Brooks
Mr.
didn't
Brooks?
film. He filmed the whole match except that. I'm sitting there, I'm like, this might be one of the most brutal bumps I've ever taken in my entire life, and I'm about to see it on tape, and then it goes down to the sand because he was watching himself.
He's like, oh my God.
And we're like, come on!
But where I was going with it was the ride home. And that's what the fans don't see. And you know what? That should be the name of your next documentary, The Ride Home. It should be, and I'm not kidding. Like, I'm kind of having fun. But
because you have a lot of fun. Not only do you have the reminiscing about what happened in that match, but also the fun stories.
What people don't know is that, like, on that particular time, I was driving. You end up sitting up front. We put Jake in the back. Now, for those of you who don't know, Jake does not fucking sit in the back. He's not fucking Miss Daisy. That motherfucker's a shotgun calling son of a bitch. To the point of being a bit of an asshole. If I'm not
typically I prefer driving, just because I know we'll get there, because Leatherman turn a 8-hour drive into a 15-hour drive.
Well, I'll get you there, but I'll get you there safe. But I'll get you there a little late. But that's all right.
Going to Georgia and you being surrounded by pillows.
But
You're just
and a fan.
Yeah.
I almost fucking died, you fucking asshole. Anyway, fuck you, Reggie.
I'll tell you.
But seriously, let me wrap this up real quick. This story.
Yeah, real quick. How many times have we heard that, listeners?
No, but you were in fucking misery. I mean, do you remember that? Like, you couldn't.
Bad.
He had the whole backseat, and it was an SUV. He had the backseat. The hatch had all of our luggage. So the idea was, let's get Jake as comfortable as he possibly can, because he took this ridiculous bump. Yeah. Probably 10 or 12 foot drop, would you
Easily
say?
12.
Easily.
Yeah. And it was probably 10 or 12 to our feet that was on the landing, because it was second story, but I had to go over the railing.
Right.
Like the banister.
It was a big ass fall.
But it was just brutal. And
by the way, he didn't stop wrestling at that point, TJ Sykes. He kept fucking wrestling because the match didn't end.
That was early. That was pretty early.
Once again, it's one of those things, adrenaline's going bop, 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 bop. But then whenever you sit down, life's not the same.
It's horrible.
And I just remember the whole time, like, he was sort of wallowing in the back just because he was in so much misery. Like, you couldn't find that spot that Dale Griffith finally found. Lovely. He never got his lovely.
This is really comfortable.
You found what is a horrible injury when you start jamming your fist into it to try to make it stop hurting.
When you have to increase the pain to relieve the pain.
Like you find yourself like biting your forearm, trying to make you think of that more so than the
injury.
So
keep that in mind, Griff. The ride home. That
is pretty cool though, because you'd have all kinds of fun stories too.
I'll tell you the one I had the most fun doing that was surprisingly emotional, and that was I was sitting there watching Rocky V. I think I was talking to you on the phone.
Why?
And at the why would I be watching Rocky V? Are you kidding me?
Because it's fucking horrible. It's the worst Rocky ever.
Well, it's still Rocky. It's still better than most
compared
movies.
To the other Rockies, that's not really a fair statement. It's better than a lot of movies.
For real. That said, at the end of it, when they go through all the Rocky movies, and they do it in black and white, and they do it to that Elton John song, and I was like, man, I was like, we can maybe do that. We maybe have enough stuff that we could do that. And I started trying to piece that together, and it was kind of like, man, I can't
get after it. You find yourself having to figure out what you're going to leave out because the song's only so long.
Well, it was funny because I forget how many pictures. There's like maybe 300 pictures or something, and I thought, okay, well, if each picture gets,
now, are you doing what is this? Is this a Highwayman video or an Elite video? What is
this? This is the Elite video it's on YouTube right now.
Yeah, it's the one to Measure of a Man where it shows the beginning, the very.
But you did one that was just the Highwayman too, didn't you? Do one too?
Yeah, but I'm not sure if it. Yeah, I'm not sure if it.
Do you know which one we're talking about though?
I know.
That's a measure of a man.
I mean, it's not that high pitched, but.
But you remember the actual video.
But it's all the Elite stuff.
But it's in order. I was just going off the idea.
I thought that you did that with one of.
There was probably one that
had.
Yeah, but we're talking about the Elite.
Okay, well I didn't know.
So everything's not about you.
And
I didn't know.
You were in this a lot.
Now, at this point.
It was all in order from the first pictures we had from the first show and training center to the training center burning down. Like everything was in order right up until
send it to me.
That last show. Well, yeah, we'll check it out. But anyway, it was funny because the song, I don't know, how long is the song, like 3 minutes or something?
Probably 3.5, 4 minutes, yeah.
So I'm thinking, okay, I had about 250 or 300 pictures. So I'm like, if each one of these are on the screen and I checked, because on the Rocky movie, they were on for about 3.5 to 4 seconds each. But, okay, so that kind of moves with the rhythm of the song. We'll do the math. You put 3 seconds on a song, that's 20 pictures a minute. The song's only 3 minutes. It's like 60, 65 pictures tops. So I'm like, well, that's not going to work. So we ended up cutting it down to where those pictures are changing just a shade over 1 second so that we could fit as many as possible. And there's 180 pictures in there.
I've seen the one.
Yeah,
I've seen the one of the Highwaymen
amazing.
that you did, but
I'm bringing that shit up so that when we're done.
But you know what I mean? You definitely made
Yeah.
Because you and Drew were like babies.
Here,
You guys look like babies.
Yeah, there was some cool stuff.
Hell, I'm thin in it.
I can't express enough, and I say that to everybody. Like, I would tell all the guys that are out there that there's an etiquette in the locker room, things like that. You're not going to sit around with your phones filming people in the locker room, shit like that. I get that. I condone that. I don't think that that's cool. And I don't think that trying to like ask names and all that stuff for pictures in the locker room. There's a lot of etiquette things that you have to follow, and everybody knows that. But when you have the opportunity to get photos with the boys, when you're traveling, when you're hanging out, when you're doing things, I mean, me and Gallows and Leatherman have done a lot of trips together and things like that. So we have had a lot of opportunities to capture some of that stuff along the way. But like you said about that elite thing, there's so many pictures of all of us. Like, and I know in CPW when all three of us happened to be there at the time, because you were always bouncing around a lot of leagues, and we were bouncing around different leagues. So there was a lot of times when we weren't crossing paths. But when we were documenting a lot of that shit. And I say that for everybody because eventually, and I wasn't as big of an advocate as you were, Leatherman, all these years, and you got the man cave to prove it. But for the longest time, I was like, man, I don't need that. And I talked to Gallows in length about this a bunch of times.
I love that.
And I've told him, and he's getting into that mode now too. He's like, man, I've done so much cool shit, but I don't really have anything documented. Like, I can't sit there and go through pictures of all the cool shit I've done. Like, I mean, on TV he can, but all the cool moments that he's dealt with behind the scenes, he has no documentation of that. He has no way to, like, unless somebody brings it up to him, he doesn't really remember it. I mean, there's stories, but your images will fade after time, unfortunately. And when I see videos like the one that you did, I mean, it's like, man, I remember exactly what I was thinking the day that picture was took, or the moment that picture was took, and it had nothing to do with a match that I was proud of. It had to do with the moment that was awesome.
Right.
It's like, that's what was cool about that picture we were talking about last week about the Phenom sitting there staring a hole through the back of Dalton Hayes' head at Mezzo's. Yeah. Because those bar moments are awesome, too. Like, people just don't get how much fun moments you can have.
And I'm going to put myself over because that's what it is.
Oh, geez, here we go.
But the truth is, I was ahead of the curve, though, because I really do have shit that nobody else had. Because everybody's got a phone now. So everybody's got a camera on them every time they walk by. But I have stuff that nobody had from 15 or 20 years ago.
Back in the 35 millimeter days.
Because I knew that it was going to matter. Like, I'll give you an example. Okay, like, I don't want to stooge stuff off. There's a picture, a Lord of the Rings picture. There's Jake and Drew and I. And this thing might end up doing something, or may not. But you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And
that's one of my favorite pictures.
It's one of my favorite pictures too. But if I didn't think, I mean, that's just. I mean, I have stuff that.
Well, and that came. I think that came to even long before we
did
it, because I remember meeting you when we had our first jobs and we were kids, and you would come in and you'd have albums where it's like, hey, Ric Flair wrestled Roddy Piper in a steel cage at Johnstone War Memorial.
Right.
I took the pictures, and here they are blown up in 8x10s, and you think like it was something you were already doing as a wrestling fan.
And I was doing it as a fan, and then it was just kind of like, and the truth is that I never, ever, ever imagined 20 years. That I never imagined this.
Right.
When we were on the crew, I never imagined that you and I would
have a ladder, tables, ladders, and chairs match,
and that I'd be in your wedding and we'd be attending each other's funerals. Like, you didn't,
one of us will, right?
What I'm saying is that I didn't know that this was going to be a lifelong friendship,
right?
But somewhere along the way, I just started snapping pictures or having somebody snap pictures here, there, whatever.
Yeah.
And I was kind of meticulous in keeping them and holding on to them. And, it just was... and I'm glad that I did, because when it's all said and done, I'm going to have two things to document the history of my life: Springsteen's music and the pictures of Tim Walker took, and all these other pictures that I have.
Yeah.
You know? And I have stuff that I've got pictures on here. I have stuff on here where Drew looks, where Gallows looks like such a baby. It's not even fun. Like, I have this. I mean, do you have that? I don't know if you have that. Do you have that?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I've got. That was after the match that you and I had.
Yeah, that was the match.
That was recalculous. You know, it was unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was just. But I have stuff. I mean, look at this. I mean, Gallows owns a tattoo parlor now. He had one tattoo at that time. I mean, you know what I'm saying? So, I mean, this is just, you know, we're wrapping up.
Yeah. I mean, that's all great stuff. A really cool thing I hadn't mentioned to you guys yet. I talked to Tim Walker last night. He will be here a week from today. He's going to roll into town at about 5:30, and he said he's here for the long haul. So as long as we want to do a podcast, he's on board.
All right.
So
awesome.
That's going to be really, really cool.
That'd be
All right.
cool.
Tim, I drink Miller Lite.
As do I.
And tomorrow night, we're in Mount Storm, West Virginia. So, again, 301-697-1909 or Facebook.com/EliteProUniverse.
I
Stop
like the
by
cut
or
of the
call.
jib of the Jake the Machine Davis podcast where we talk about my matches. So maybe we'll hit a couple of those next week.
Yeah, for real.
Might as well.
And if you guys are listening and you come to the show, come up and let us know what you think of the podcast in person, if it's good or if it's bad, but mostly if it's good. Keep your feelings to yourself, you selfish bastards.
No,
if you don't like it.
I would really like to know, because if you think Leatherman is the talent, which I do, then I think, you know, I would just like to, you know,
Hear it directly from the
and on
fans.
that note,
and then hopefully be compensated for it.
any of our listeners out there, if you have certain topics you want us to talk about, of course, it's just our opinions, but opinions are. Everybody's got one, you know what I mean?
Let's do that match.
But
then.
we've been doing this a long time, and I'd love.
Oh yeah, sure.
I'd love to do it.
Jacob, let's put you on the spot.
Go
Though.
ahead.
I don't have one burning a desire, and so you go ahead, and then I'll.
We were sitting watching WrestleMania 8 the other day, and and it's not a match, but it's my favorite. It's probably my favorite vignette, if you will.
I was at Mania 8.
I know.
You were there?
Yeah.
Who's doing one? Yep.
The path of destruction left by Sid Justice after he finds out he's not the one that's going to face Ric Flair for the heavyweight title at the press conference, and then that
Little video package.
Jack thought it was bogus, the most bogus act you've ever pulled off. And
There's
when
a
he
great
gives
promo,
that,
but there's also a great video package too, where he's got people on the stretcher running.
that's
into
the
ring
path of
and all.
destruction. He gives that one dude that airplane spin and just complete disregard for his safety. Just lets him free fall.
What
like
do you guys?
8 feet.
What do you guys do the Sid impression about when he says Hulk Hogan's come back from many a great beating? Do you guys know that?
Oh, I remember the one where he's standing there and
you guys are like 14 and 15 years old doing this shit.
Yeah, whenever Mean Gene Okerlund's interviewing him, he was like, "See there, Sid Justice." Hulk Hogan never said, "Shut up, you short, fat, bald-headed little oaf."
He says something like, "I've seen Hulk Hogan." No, it was Bobby Heenan. The girl goes, "I've seen Hulk Hogan come back from many a beating." He goes, "Well, you better sit down because he's about ready to have one." Or something like that, you know? A barn burner, it will not be.
I curse you and every Hulkamaniac.
Curse you.
And then he comes in to destroy the barbershop. He grabs a hold of Beefcake. He's like, "I'm going to rearrange your face." Beefcake doesn't even get hit, and he falls to the ground. I mean, kudos to him for playing the part, but he's like begging off, and he hasn't actually been hit.
Well, that's whenever he had the face thing.
Yeah, and Bobby Heenan, if he hits Beefcake, it's going to be a face-off. But, okay, well, on that note.
All right, okay.
All
Jacob?
I really enjoyed the 5-round match with Regal and Flair that I just posted recently. I mean, I hadn't seen it in years and years and years, and I just came across it. I mean, it was just it was the Queensberry Rolls or whatever it was, and basically it was like a 8-minute or a 5-minute round. I think it was 5-minute rounds, but there was 5 of them, and they went like each week, and it was just chain wrestling. And I think that's a lost art with today's wrestling for the most part. I mean, obviously TV, the time constraints, you're not going to see a lot of slow poking, feeling out chain wrestling, but I think on the independent circuit, when you have that much time, a lot of guys could watch that. I posted that on our private page for all of our guys to watch because it was just. And Regal, you're not going to find a better technical guy than Regal. And Flair did something he typically didn't. It's one of those things where he had some of that talent that he used against guys like Steamboat and Flair and Steamboat and Sting and a couple of those guys, but typically didn't do a lot of that wrestling. So whenever he did, it was like, yeah, he still got that in the bag, but he never did it. Like, it showed you how great he was because he's going in there against a guy that did that primarily and went toe to toe. It was awesome. Yeah. Week after week after week, it was a complete clinic. And I realized it was only like 5 or 6 minutes or whatever, but man, I just could sit there and watch it all day long. Yeah. It's just like, and I'm going to throw a second one out there. Young David and Finley from the Worldwide of Sports, or
who's Young David?
David Boy Smith. He's only like 17 or 18 or something like that. If you just put in Young David versus Finley. And it's another one under the same rules. It's got rounds. There's a bunch of different parts of it. And it is unbelievable. When you look at the intensity, if you want to watch intense chain wrestling, that's it. Every hold they take is unbelievable. And the amount of impact that they snap on it, it's as legit chain wrestling as you're ever going to find. It's unbelievable.
And I don't mean this to be insulting because you guys know that Flair's my guy, and I think he's the greatest ever. The thing I love about those matches with Regal, though, is that it's not the canned, and I think this is your point, it's not the canned Flair match. It's not press slam, backdrop, go to the top rope, face bump, the stuff that people love about Rick. And it's Rick. Look, it was an exhibition of what looked like a true contest of two guys doing catch in that British style,
like single leg takedown, and all kinds of stuff.
And watching these guys do this thing, it was that whole Queensberry rules.
Yeah.
It's amazing that and Regal was so good at it.
Tell you what, if it was done properly and it was with the guys that had the skills, that's something that could be booked on an independent show. Yeah. And if the rules were explained to the fans, the people would like it. I'm telling you.
Yeah. All right, mine is going to be I'm going to go with two matches. They're 1 year apart, and I watched these the other day, and the first one is WrestleMania 2000. Which was WrestleMania 16. It's a triple threat match with Benoit versus Angle versus Jericho. Angle goes into the match as it's not 2 out of 3 falls. I'm sorry, it's 2 falls. Angle goes in as the Euro Intercontinental Champion. He's European Champion and the Intercontinental Champion. The first fall is for the Intercontinental title. The second fall is for the European title. It's a fantastic match. And then fast forward 1 year later, WrestleMania 17, which is Angle versus Benoit in a singles match. There's a couple reasons why. First of all, WrestleMania 17, Angle and Benoit is one of the best matches I've ever seen. It's absolutely amazing. But I would ask our folks to watch 16 first, because it's always said about how Kurt Angle picked up on the sport faster than anybody and how he did that. If you watch the growth of Angle from 16 to 17, it's unbelievable. To watch him, as good as he is in 16, he's good. And he's in there with Jericho, and he's in there with Benoit, who they speak for themselves. 17 is amazing, and to see him do that. So that would be, I would say, watch that first the 2 fall match, and then watch them back to back, and do it like that, and just see the evolution of Kurt Angle, because he's amazing.
All right, guys. Well, hopefully we see you tomorrow night, and we will also see you here.
Wait, Reggie Collins, real quick. Throw one out.
A what out?
A match. What match would you suggest for fans to watch that is one of your preferable matches, whether it be on the network or on YouTube?
On YouTube, and that is the finale of the J Crown tournament, and that is Ultimate Dragon against Great Sasuke. The match is amazing.
Awesome.
It has everything in it.
Okay.
Cool. All right, guys. Well, like I said, we'll hopefully see you tomorrow, and we will be back here next Thursday with...
When are you unblock me?
Text. That's all right.
We'll be back here next week with Pro Wrestling Illustrated photographer and all-around great guy with a hell of a lot of stories, Tim Walker, who for the last, probably for close to the last 20 years, but specifically in Elite for the last 8 years, have made all of us look a hell of a lot better than we are.
Absolutely, for us since '99.
My man cave is loaded with Tim Walker stuff, so thank you, Tim.
And we'll see. We'll talk to you next week, and thanks so much, guys. I am Tate Griffen, joined by Jake the Machine Davis.
Ow!
And Leslie Leatherman.
That's what he does. That's what he does. He's got to...
We'll see you later.
That's cricket.
Fuck Reggie Collins, that motherfucker that cried in court.